Thank you for listening to the Following Films podcast. Today I'm joined by Julie Berghoff. She's a production designer who won the Emmy and the Directors Guild Award for The Handmaid's Tale. She was also nominated for Excellence in Production Design on Electric Dreams, based on the short stories of Philip K. Dick. I had her on the show today to talk about her Emmy-nominated work on the Apple TV Plus series, The Studio. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. Yes, of course. But thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. I really do appreciate that.
Yes, for sure.
One of the things that when I look over your body of work that I love about it is that I can't pigeonhole it. You don't have this specific style, this calling card that I'm able to see because of from everything from, you Saw to Neighbors to The Studio and all these other things. It's all over the place if you look at like the style and the intent of these films. So how do you approach projects? What is your sort of North Star when you're taking on a new project?
The script.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, really, first of all, I was pigeonholed at first by doing only horror films. So then I was like, I'm never getting pigeonholed again. It took me a long time to get. Lisa Cholodenko was like the first person who gave me an opportunity. She was like, your resume wasn't really, didn't really coincide with comedy, because I had done like 4 horror films but I had nailed the presentation. So after that, I was like, I don't want to be pigeonholed on that. I want to try every genre to show people that designers are capable of doing that. So there's also like this internal burning desire to show like producers and directors that it's more about a connection with them and the script than it is anything else,
Of course. It's so funny because it's from a production design standpoint, we all have ideas of what a world should look like, whether it feels authentic or not. And so the fact that somebody whose job that is to point that out wouldn't be able to do that is it's very unusual. If you have a good eye, you have a good eye to me.
Yeah, and it's also it's good eye for sure is something I feel like we're born with, right? Or not.
Sure.
And also just like a connection to that director and the project, and I think I'm kind of also, okay, one thing I am pigeonholed for is like thinking outside the box, which can sometimes be more expensive.
Explain, like, give me an example of that.
Well, it was actually Seth and Evan who said, because I haven't worked with them since Preacher. Mm-hmm. I mean, and Neighbors, he as an actor and then as a director. And they said that they called me because I do think outside the box and they wanted to approach this project in a unique way. And so, I definitely, on that call, I was already given some notes from the producer that we had to shoot existing sets, which I was all like, oh God, existing sets. If they want to do Warner Brothers, I'm going to be stuck at this one building that's like drywall. And then I was like, wait, how am I going to make that more exciting? What I mean? So then I dug into like the Google look, like making it super modern. And then I was like, but that doesn't. So sometimes I approach a interview with like a couple different points of view, because I don't know their point of view, but I also could go in a couple different directions. So on this one, I did that. And then I also did like mid-century kind of architecture. There was a a French designer who did like steel case. And then I thought 1920s, because like that was the original 5, right?
Right.
So I did 3 different kind of presentations to them to get the project because, I wasn't the only one who interviewed. And Seth was like, he loves John Lautner. Like, I think if you asked him, he'd probably say that's his favorite architect. But that's mid-century, right? And so he was like, I like the idea of, earlier. And Frank Lloyd Wright is the only really strong American architect who started, in LA in like 1915 with the Hollyhock House. Like that was his first big commission here. And that was inspired by the World's Fair. So I then went down to the World's Fair and like dug around there. So I really like bounce around with my research and I grew up in Chicago. So Louis Sullivan was a huge influence for me.
You have everything in Chicago though, as far as like in that's so funny that you say that, because it's the studio itself, every single episode almost has a different movie feel to it. It has a wildly different look, much like Chicago. Each building has its own architecture style. It's such a that do those two things bleed into each other? Do you think that influenced you in some sense?
I think it influenced me as far as the build,
Okay.
100%. But as far as like the rest of the show, that's where all of my variety of design came in, because I like Army of the Dead with Zack Snyder, and then I was doing zombies, and I was doing, Chinatown. I did I Am the Night with Patty Jenkins. All those things have influenced me, and it was just like for me, I was like, oh yeah, zombies, I got this. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I was excited, like, to be able to step into different creative modes, put different hats on and present different ideas to the guys. Cause they were very much like, what can we do on the lot? And can you figure it out? And we need to have, long shots, and will you time stuff? So I would go out and scout and with the golf cart, and we would time it, and we would, try to make, was very cohesive team, like with Adam and me. And I worked really closely. I can't say enough about, Russell Iyer, the gaffer, like he worked really closely with our department. And like we pre-lit the Golden Globes before, because we only had like 3 days to load in and do that. So I knew it had to be almost theatrical, right?
Yeah.
So I had to like just put it in and hopefully it works. And so Russell worked with us, and we pre-lit all those triangles so I could just get him on stage and we didn't have days to pre-light something. And if it didn't work, I was screwed. So we do a lot of pre-building. I'm like the queen of samples. So but it saves money and time,
Of course.
So anyways, but Chicago was an amazing place to grow up. I grew up in the city, and my parents we have the oldest restaurant in Chicago. So my great grandfather started in the World's Fair.
Okay. Well, what's the name of I go to Chicago at least 4 times a year, probably
the Berghoff
5.
Restaurant,
What is it?
The Berghoff Restaurant downtown.
Okay.
So it's the oldest restaurant in Chicago. We have the first and second liquor license after Prohibition.
That's so cool.
Yeah, my great grandfather started on the pathway up to the World's Fair, and we would like sell beer for 15 cents and sandwich. Yeah. So like the World's Fair is in my blood.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to read that Frank went to the World's Fair and was inspired by the Mayan, because it was a big Mayan exhibition, and it also coincided with his life, like his depression of losing his family. I mean, this is all like me watching documentaries about him, but a lot of people think that inspired the Mayan phase because of his grief and tomb-like and stuff. So Seth and Evan were kind of like, well, cinema is like, what we're doing, and only making movies is like dead. Like we're old. So like we leaned into kind of that tomb
And
architecture.
that's why the studio has that look, because it does the literal studio itself at the center of it looks like a Mayan temple. It looks like that could be a burial chamber almost.
Yeah. And it was
that's interesting.
And it was so cool because that recipe wasn't in the beginning. Like it kind of just like us talking and looking at things. And because at first I went with more of like, and then I just was inspired by so many pieces of Frank. Like the ceiling was his Prairie Period, and the columns were the Imperial Palace, and the the bricks in the Imperial Palace was. There was a house that I shot in for the 5-year engagement called the Bird House. That was Frank Lloyd Wright in Ann Arbor, and he had made the shape of a bird in the brick. And then when the light hit that, it would make the birds fly around the room during the day.
Wow.
I know. And so my goal was to make that with our the Continental logo, the
Hmm.
sun. And we don't have sun coming in all day on a stage.
Right.
Adam could do it if we had that long of a scene, but anyways, that was my inspiration for kind of like all the detail of like that with the sun and the logo.
So then that's really cool. That's great. I love that. It's one of those things that I don't know that you intellectually recognize it, but I do think you feel it in a sense when you're watching this. It's one of those things when you're doing your job. I assume that's a part of it that's almost invisible, but it just feels right that you're not drawing attention to yourself in that way.
I think we just put our heart and soul into it, and then we hope that it inspires everyone who sees it and who steps into it.
Yeah.
It's obviously we get into the characters and we start to think about their part in like each office and things like that and how they
Right.
would influence each office. But I think overall, like we created a fictitious, president, which his name was Steinberg. And
Hmm.
we made a painting of him and we were like, okay, Steinberg, is he Jewish? Where'd he come from? Like, and literally we would sit around and talk about it and maybe, yeah. So
That's so that has to be such a what a fun way to just go down those rabbit holes like that and just get to dive into that and really live in that space. I think that's something that is a unique person that would want to do that. I don't think that's a world for everybody that would want to dive that deep into those sort of thoughts around the look and feel.
I think that to be a really authentic, unique
You
designer,
have to.
you have to, and you have to step out of yourself and what you like.
Mm.
And sometimes that's hard.
Well, that's what I was getting to in the beginning, because I think there's people that have a bias that they bring themselves to everything. And then you say, well, I'm looking for their bias. So it's fine. You bring that in and that's what you're going for. But if you want to, as you were saying, serve the story, you kind of, I guess, have to step out of your own way and see
Yeah,
things that you might not necessarily
exactly.
love, but it's
Exactly.
something that makes sense for what you're doing.
Yeah. And a lot of times I have to fight for that. And it's sometimes I win and sometimes I lose.
What was it like shooting in Vegas? How do you shoot with a place like that? How do you deal with design in a place that is already designed yeah, it's, you've done it twice or more than that. You've done it with, I mean, I think the two examples, I think of Army of the Dead and I think of the studio and those wildly different, but approaches to the same city.
Well, one of them I was deconstructing Vegas, and the other
Sure.
one I just had to like bounce off of what they already had. And,
Okay.
you know, the Venetian was so accommodating to us. We were so lucky because usually they're really strict about how you film there. But they were very gracious. And most of the work I did there was all the graphic work because we shot everything in camera.
Mhm.
So all of the graphics in this CinemaCon were created previously, so we could project them on the LED screens. And so most of my work was that, and then just pretty stuff, like flowers and
Yeah.
painting. And I didn't do a lot there. Just and sometimes that's the hardest thing is be like, oh, I love it the way it is. Let's just like go with it.
The Bryan Cranston's hat at the table, those kinds of things that you're coming up
That
with.
was that was props. That was Andy Siegel, and yeah, I think I needed a boy to step into that role. Like
Fair
I
enough.
know it was so fun. Like, I mean, and also you have people like Bryan Cranston willing to wear, a little like crazy prop like that and garters and walk around in his whitey tighties. I mean, just like,
the
yeah,
guy commits. There's no doubt. You can say anything you want about him. I love him as an actor. I always enjoy his work, but you cannot say he does not commit to the role. He's all in as much
he's
as
all in.
even on something as what you could see. That's I think what makes this work though is because it's as offensive or as blue as you could possibly get in humor, but it's also told which with such heart and such purpose that you can feel intention behind every moment in it. And so you could watch this dismissively and not pay attention to the artistry, I think, and just pay attention to laughs. Or you could watch this and just pay it. You could turn down the sound and just watch how beautiful the framing is on each moment. It's such an unusual show in that way.
Wow, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I feel like Adam and Seth and Evan really, they found their way. Like we started in the studio, which was hard. We had to have the build done in the beginning, but they wanted to find the language of how to move the camera, and that space gave them that time to like move through it and like really figure it out. When there was a lot of cranes and a lot of building of rigs, like the key grip like worked his tail off. Another Adam, again, super cohesive. Like we all talked all the time. And yeah, it's a special show. And I feel like the actors, like even Catherine Hahn and Catherine O'Hara, I think their roles were originally smaller, but because they shined so much, they like the roles got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that just attests to them and coming in with like, okay, I don't care how big my role is, I just want to be here, and then having it expand with their characters finding a groove and just and blossoming. So,
and it's literally every subplot character that you have in this. You could spin off and spend an entire series with them. I would have no problem hanging out with Catherine Hahn for 10 episodes or Catherine O'Hara. It's, when you visit them, when you meet these characters along the way, you're just hoping that you kind of focus on them for a while longer. And each episode does really feel like its own unique story that sort of, there's an overarching thing throughout, but really it's reminds me of old television in a way where it does have that sort of episode by episode, week by week feel to it. So it's not serialized in the same way that a lot of modern television is.
It's true. I think that also Seth will tell you, I'm sure you watched interviews with him. He's like, we've literally every episode was unique to itself. We had a problem, we had to solve it, and it was done, and it was, I think, you might see them building the characters more in season 2. I haven't read anything yet. That's just my gut, but I'm excited. I was like nudging them yesterday. Do you have anything I should be reading?
So that's the last question I wanted to, I know we're at time right now, but I wanted to ask you, when did it, you obviously start very early in the process. When do you finish? When does your role end in the making of a film or television show?
I'm usually, besides the writers, the first one on, and the directors, and then I'm there to the last day. Like sometimes they'll ask me to consult with some of the visual effects stuff, and
interesting.
Sometimes they'll push me to like work on it when we're still together. Like a lot of the visual effects sometimes can be just even signage, and I really want to touch everything. So I'll push hard to get everything done as much as possible, or to give them some concept art. So after this, I worked a lot on the exterior Steinberg because we built the first floor, but then we did set extensions. So I worked with visual effects to, get the building right.
That it shows. It 100% shows. You can feel that in every episode of this thing. It's such a wonderful show that I was a little bit hesitant at first because there is so many Hollywood things about Hollywood. It's just,
right.
Since The Player, it's like that. I'm 48, so that came out at a very specific, very important, influential time in my life. I've always held it against that. And so it rarely gets up to that standard for me. So I'm always a little bit let down, but this is one that's doing something, while clearly influenced by that in so many ways, speaks on its own and stands up next to it, I think.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll tell Seth you said that because that was our inspiration. So, and yeah, it's very unique. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I really feel grateful to be included in such a special project.
I mean, you're clearly hearing it from everybody. It's one of those things that the number of nominations that you have for this thing, it's breaking records left and right. And it goes down so easy. It's one of those things where films are rarely this digestible, but made at such a high level. So it's just, you got something really special here. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to your speech on the Emmy night. So
thank you so much. Thank you, Sal Saberstein.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Julie. It was great to meet you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Years gone, and what are we left to show. Wasted time that I know. And fear's gone. And where did all of it go? And my pride and my mind follows my pride. So what's wrong with fixing and plastering though? Oh nothing, not anymore. So sing your victory song, pretend that nothing is wrong, like you don't know. The bandits finally came off, the scars are left to show off. On with the show. Fading songs, let's not repeat the show.